Ensuring the civil rights of students and staff is up for discussion on this episode of The Inside Scoop. Hello and welcome back to The Inside Scoop. I'm David Owen. Remember to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on upcoming episodes. Everyone wants to know their children are well protected. In fact, in our previous episode, we discussed how Cobb Schools prioritizes the physical safety and well-being of our students and staff through our Cobb Shield initiative. But what about ensuring civil rights? Here to bring us up to speed on this is our Assistant Superintendent of Compliance and Legal Affairs, Gretchen Walton. Gretchen, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
As you have been here several times in the past, you are an expert on all things legal for us, so we are very grateful for that. So let's just kind of start at a baseline here. What is a civil right?
We start with their personal rights that are guaranteed and protected by the Constitution and a number of other laws, and that have developed through the years. Probably the most recent one was in the 90s, where they've added some laws to protect civil rights.
Okay. And civil rights, I mean, obviously we have the civil rights era. That was the 1960s and early 70s.
And the Civil Rights Act came out of that in 1964.
Okay.
So that's kind of the foundational federal law. A lot of people think, oh, the Bill of Rights, that's the foundational Civil Rights Act. It's really not, because that's the difference between personal liberties, like civil liberties, and civil rights. Civil liberties are more like, sorry, I'm sorry.
No, that's a reality. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Help us understand the difference between
I think the easiest one to think about is like the First Amendment, because that's the one that most people know the best, right? The freedom of speech. Sure. So that's really a civil liberty.
Okay.
Whereas a civil right would be your right to get a job on the same equal standing as everyone else, not, your, whatever your personal characteristic is.
Right.
I'm going to use a very far-fetched, you're from Mars. We don't love that you're green and a Martian, and so we're not even going to consider you for the job. So that would be more of a civil right. Now, the civil liberty is, I'm from Mars, I want to talk about Mars, and I have a right to do so even if you find that disagreeable.
So that was a vague Elon Musk reference, since he wants to populate. Okay.
That was I'm striving for something that will be neutral and not have a lot of connotations. So Mars it is. That's where we landed in today's podcast.
Absolutely. So how does Cobb Schools work to protect the civil rights of, it's not just our students, that they're our main concern, obviously, but we also have a pretty strong support of our staff and want to make sure staff rights are protected.
Right. All of our stakeholders, right?
Right.
That's one of our jobs. And it starts at I would say foundationally, again, or the ground level, is our policies. The policies, first of all, state, what our commitments are, right? Like, we're not going to discriminate. We're not going to allow discriminatory actions. We're not going to allow harassment.
Kind of big picture.
Big picture. But then they also get to, and sometimes it's an administrative rule that kind of goes with the policy, tells you, okay, here's how you handle this. Right? If you are dealing with sexual harassment, go to JCAC and you print it out. It's literally 20 pages long on here is the procedure in Cobb County School District to handle sexual harassment. And that goes for each type of, I'm going to say complaint, because that's actually the federal term for it. But each type of complaint that could be brought has a policy then that says how we're going to handle it internally.
Okay. So you do have a set, not just the guidelines of what to do, what not to do, but the kind of guardrails on how it's managed.
Yes.
It's not just kind of an open, free range deal with this. There's a specific process, I presume.
Yes. So there's always a process. part of that, we're so big, right? We're so big. So that helps us have some consistency. It also, in the process, then it helps. These typically are something that leaders deal with in a very small volume or frequency. So, you build some expertise dealing with something repeatedly or frequently. Discrimination and harassment claims are just not, thank God, are not super common or frequent. And because we have almost 18,000 employees and we have, 112 schools, that's 112 different ways it could be handled. Then you add all the different departments. So that's why we have a consistent process, so that when, for example, a principal, they have someone file a grievance, they know, okay, now I have the grievance, here's what I need to do. And you can literally print it out and just check off the things and make sure you followed it properly.
So is the federal government still involved in our civil rights related issues?
Absolutely.
Or is that okay?
And they have, so government agencies in general have an arm usually that is, their job is to deal with civil rights, and the Department of Education has the Office of Civil Rights, and they handle complaints alleging discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, disability, or age. They'll get a complaint, and then they figure out if they're going to open it or not.
Open the complaint?
Right. There has to be enough information. So you could send them a letter and say, Cobb County Schools.
Let's get you on mic.
Sorry. You could send them, I move around. You could send them a letter and say, like, Cobb County Schools discriminated against me because I'm from Mars. They, won't let me swim with the swim team because I'm green. Okay, well, there probably has to be a little more to that. There have to be more facts, right? And so that's, I'm not going to pretend I work for OCR, but that's when they have to decide if they're going to open things. Their complaints typically lag. I've had one that was 4 years old. They can lag 2 years. The one we recently received that people were talking about on social media and that was in the news, we received it on December 5th. It was from 2021. It was over 2 years old. Over 2 years old.
But it just hit the rubber mill and... Right.
Well,
I know there
You're not going to get me into all my thoughts on social media and misinformation, but I will speak to it. Because it's important that people understand this, right? Like, these complaints are not, while always relevant in my opinion, because we do, but we take every complaint incredibly seriously. We are so big that we don't pretend we're not the type to say, oh, that couldn't happen here, right? Yeah. We take every complaint seriously, but the reality is, a lot of times because of the lag, the kid may not be still here.
Yeah.
The adults involved may no longer be here. I've dealt with more than one complaint where I'm literally having to chase witnesses who are not even living in the United States.
That seems like it'd be really, really hard for you or for us as a district to try to chase down or even find witnesses or people who have any knowledge about what actually happened 2 or 3 years down the road. That seems like a huge disadvantage for us.
It's interesting. It's also, they're very broad. When you read them, they can be very, very broad. So I'm always relieved when it's a true incident, when someone's like, oh, this happened. This is why we think it was discrimination. Ironic, it is. There's some irony to there. But it's pretty easy to investigate a true incident, right? Like, you usually have already, I think so far all of the OCR complaints, and I've been dealing with OCR complaints since 2012.
Okay.
I think all the ones I've dealt with, I took a little break while I was doing something in teaching and learning, but if it's an incident, people have usually already investigated it and handled it, addressed it. then
at some level,
which is why most of our complaints with OCR, they find, oh, you did something about it that we found satisfactory. So,
but maybe someone else didn't, and so they submitted the complaint. They didn't like the answer. Is that maybe what?
That would be it. They didn't like the answer. It's not that someone else didn't. It's that they didn't like the answer, or they didn't like the result. But again, I mean, it's a good moment to kind of look under the hood and make sure that things are running the way that they need to.
Sure.
Make sure that we're not unaware of potential for violations, right? Because with as many people and as many decisions that are made in a day, it's so possible.
So,
right?
How many OCR complaints does the district get in a year?
Not that many. Okay. I would say we average between 1 and 5.
Okay.
Which, again, considering the how big we are, that's not.
Yeah, that's minuscule, but the intensity of any of those 5 could be significant.
A lot of times with OCR, the question isn't, did it happen? It's, what did you do when it happened?
Right, the response.
Right, because if something's peer on peer, or even an adult with a kid, right? Like if there's something that someone perceived as discrimination or harassment, or that they have something against the whole complaint against the school or the district more broadly.
Right.
There are a lot of times when the circumstances are real. So some kids get in trouble at a school.
Okay, just as a hypothetical.
Okay. Well, I mean, this could be really real. So kids get in trouble at a school handles it. The complaint is the school didn't handle it fairly because my Martian kids are treated differently than everyone else. Okay, so that would be the gist of a complaint, of a discrimination complaint. Like like a national origin one would be, this person was unkind to my child because they knew my child was from Mars. And then there's all these questions like, with our hypothetical little green Martian friends, there might be a visible, right? But sometimes, like with national origin, there's this question of, did the person in question even know your child was from Mars, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a question of like what. So it's really interesting because the incident might be real, right? Like, okay, they got in trouble. Like they did something. They absolutely got in trouble. We absolutely disciplined them. Then the investigation is the underpinnings of, did everyone else get treated the way these kids did? Or is it just the Martian kids who are getting suspended for this? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like that's where the potential discrimination could be. Or let's say back to the swim team, right? Is everyone else otherwise qualified getting to do this? And we just said, because you're green, you can't do this? Or is there a problem because you don't actually know how to swim? Right? So there's this piece of like, what were the motives? It's not as obvious as one might think when there's a complaint of whether there was discrimination. And then there's a secondary piece of, if something happened that we absolutely wouldn't be okay with, and we handle it, is there, like OCR becomes involved when they need to protect people's civil rights. Our hope is to always do such a good job that when they come to us, they're like, oh, you've got this.
Yeah.
That is our hope.
You dealt with it correctly.
Right. We want them to their finding to be, you handled this. Okay. If it came up.
So a few minutes ago, you mentioned a person taking offense at another person's actions, and then you also offered the alternative of offense at a school's actions, and by extension, the district. So can you distinguish between, or is there a distinction between the response for an individual's offense versus an organizational-based offense? How is that? Are they the same?
With almost 18,000 employees and over 100,000 kids, And then you add in community members who are volunteers, and you just add in so many humans and the human element. Our job is just to make sure our expectations are clear as far as we are not going to have discrimination or harassment in this district.
Yeah.
And to make sure that when we are working on policies and we are implementing policies, right, it's to faithfully implement them too. Those pieces, individual, organization, that's where the line is a little, if you're an individual, you're going to follow the organization's policies. Now, if there are some policy gaps, or if data shows us that there is a broader situation, we also have a responsibility to handle that.
Yeah. To make sure those guidelines for the individuals are the proper guidelines, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And to go back and say, numbers can tell almost any story.
Sure.
And the question, when you look at, say, data, say that there is a complaint based on numbers. Well, the question then is why? Why are these numbers what they are? If it is discrimination or harassment, handle that immediately, right? That's an immediate no.
Yeah.
If there are other factors, let's figure out what the other factors are and then try to mitigate those factors. But then you're now kind of outside of the realm of the discrimination and harassment. But the first thing you have to ask is, okay, if all of our friends from Mars are getting suspended at a much higher rate than everyone else, is that because they're from Mars? Or is that because they, worship the moon? Is that because I'm just making up?
You're really starting to worry me a little bit.
I know. Sorry. But you have to ask those questions, right? Because we're just not going to allow that. I mean, that we're not going to discriminate. We're not going to allow people to be treated differently because of personal characteristics and choices.
Right. And as long as the policies and all the structure are appropriate, then it might turn into maybe an HR thing, or I guess.
No, absolutely. That's why we have employee relations, right? We actually have people in HR who will handle discrimination or harassment, and if it rises to a certain level, we will have to say, this isn't going to work for Cobb County School District. You're going to have to go someplace else, right?
Students come first.
Students
protect them.
They have to. That's our job. So.
So where can somebody turn if they feel like they have a legitimate civil rights concern for their student or for themselves? I mean, what is the first point of action that you would recommend they take so that things work properly to get the situation resolved amicably?
Tell someone. Got to start there.
But who's the someone?
Well, yes, right. But who's the someone? But that's kind of the number one. Tell someone, and not tell someone on Facebook or tell your neighbor.
Right.
Tell someone who is in a position of authority to investigate and handle and protect your child. So the easiest way to know who those someones are, and this is going to feel a little bureaucratic, but again, that's how we have consistency. The Family Information Guide and Student Code of Conduct are published every year for the benefit of our families and students. Every family is supposed to review them. You actually sign that the first time you go into parent view. You check a little box. You acknowledge that you've seen them.
That's the thing you get at the beginning of the school year, or
Correct.
I guess when you...
Correct. So they're actually They're actually in laws, the fact that you have to publish some of these contacts and who to find. Okay. So when you go to the middle of it, on page 26, there's actually a chart of responsibilities for responses to civil rights concerns.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we're not relying on Gretchen's memory of the moment.
No, we are not. It is written right here.
Not that you don't have a great memory.
Well,
I'm sure.
Thank you. I'm never insulted by things like that. But what is great about this is it's very specific about where to go, right?
Okay.
So, I'll give you an example. Title IX. There is a Title IX district. I'm actually the Title IX officer for the district, but then there are deputies under me. One does in human resources, and one is for students. Those are the people that you reach out for Title IX, which is sorry, people don't live in my world. Sexual harassment and discrimination
you saw the look in
is
my
Title IX, right?
Okay.
So, but then. If you are looking at facilities accessibility, I mean, there's a whole list here. student program accessibility for things like students with disabilities, things like that. So it lists like who the different people were. It also talks on the federal level. It gives the contact information for the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC. Yeah. It tells you how to get in touch with them if you're an employee, and then it actually gives the contact information for the Office of Civil Rights. So that's a great place to start. That's a great resource. Yeah. And there's also a little explanation, which I think everyone should see and look at before they start filing a complaint, about what discrimination and harassment are. So that's in the Family Information Guide. And then I will say, your principal is always a good resource. They're always a good resource, because if they don't know the answer, they're going to pick up the phone to someone who does. So again, the first step, tell someone. Mm-hmm. The second step, you can always escalate. Yeah. We just need to educate people so they know to bring it forward and tell someone so it can be handled. This is all incredibly informative. I love the fact that you can bring not only your legal expertise, but your energy levels. always encouraging. Is there anything else that you want to add or bring to our attention? I think it's really exciting as our anti-bullying has evolved. We are next semester going to be doubling down those efforts. And we have a new version of our anti-bullying program that's coming out. We're really excited about that. That's one of our responsibilities really is to teach kids that we're not going to discriminate. And first they have to know what discrimination is. They have to know what harassment is. Yeah. And then they have to know why we won't do it. And then they have to literally see us act on that, right? Like, we're not going to tolerate that. So that we're really excited that we're going to have that in all of our schools, kind of doubling down on all those efforts. And for what it's worth, though, we have also had, the superintendent has been pretty adamant that everyone leaves their political agenda, their personal opinions outside of the classroom. And when you enter that classroom, it is for teaching and learning only, right? I mean, he tells the entire staff that every year we do that first meeting when everybody comes back from summer break. Right. And that is one of the pieces that we are adamant about, as far as keeping teaching first and learning first, and not allowing those issues to come into our classrooms. Yeah. So again, thank you so much. That's really informative stuff and exciting to hear. Frankly, some of the things that are coming. So you can find helpful links in our show notes if you want to learn more about this stuff. There's an awful lot. As you can imagine, lawyers will come up with a lot of information for you. But if you found this podcast informative for you and your family, please share it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on future episodes. As always, thank you for listening to this edition of The Inside Scoop, a podcast produced by the Cobb County School District.